March 12, 2024. Tel Aviv, Israel. A family is an impossible point of vitality. Joseph Levi, 5 years old. Hazel-colored eyes, dark curly hair, a shy smile. It comes from shouting words you might hear in a home you've just made peace with again. No, not Hebrew. No, not that either. This is much older. His mother, Sarah, an elementary school teacher, runs up the stairs. The recording sent to the camera, along with a few videos, sent the air into an uproar. Those two beautiful voices are proof of another age. Selam Elohim Biset Murim, repeated once more. David, the father, a software developer, tries to calm the situation. But Joseph is in a trance. For 20 minutes, with ceremonial pauses, words are recited fragment by fragment toward the others. Then, as if in repentance, he blinks. Mom, where's my breakfast? And then nothing happened. The parents look at each other in silence. A nightmare? A television show? Decide. Observe. Joseph is playing with construction blocks, too late, and yet successful. This time, David records what happens on video. The child speaks with absolute fluency, in an unfamiliar, idiomatic expression. He makes gestures as if moving an invisible text. He carefully draws delicate symbols in the air. Sarah notices something unsettling. The movements are too precise. Far too ritualistic. No childish imagination. It is muscular memory. Unfortunately, David shares the video in a Facebook group dedicated to ancient languages. He waits until morning. The response arrives within 3 hours. This is an imperial era dialect. 10th century BCE. And this script, impossible. Fragments are being recited from a text that does not exist even in the most secret archives of the world. Signed, Dr. Eli Rothman. Linguist, specialist in extant and semi-extant languages. Hebrew University of Jerusalem. The message ends with a single line, as if whispered. Please, please. I need to see this with my own eyes. It is said to contain invocations to spiritual entities and instructions for manipulating alternative realities. No one has ever found this book. Most consider it a myth. But Joseph speaks of it with an impossible level of detail. And even more disturbing, he knows exactly what decision was made to hide it. This report spread rapidly through Jerusalem's academic circles. Dr. Rothman contacted the Institute of Archaeology and requested an emergency meeting. March 22, 2024. The conference hall is open to the public. Present are Dr. Michael Stern, head of the Department of Studies on Solomon's Temple, Rabbi Yitzhak Cohen, an expert in Kabbalistic texts, and Dr. Ayelet Ben David, a specialist in neurology. Joseph can sometimes be guided under controlled conditions. Copies of inscriptions from the Temple Mount are brought in. Published materials as well. None of them are identified by a single known source, yet he explains their historical context with a precision that captures the expert's attention. When an elegant ancient fragment is presented, written in a dialect related to Aramaic, Joseph translates it as follows. This is the idiom of those who built the first temple. Hiram of Tyre inscribed it on the bronze pillars. Dr. Ben David completes a full neurological evaluation, magnetic resonance imaging, electroencephalograms, tests of memory and attention. The results are normal. Joseph is a healthy child. No abnormalities in the brain. No signs of autism or Savant syndrome. His intellectual level is high, advanced, even gifted, but not extraordinary. There is no medical explanation for what he knows. The doctor's joint conclusion reads, access to information that cannot be accounted for by conventional means. Interdisciplinary research is recommended. Rabbi Cohen asks to speak with Joseph alone. In a small room, he asks him in Hebrew, who taught you these things? Joseph replies, I remember myself in dreams. I am busy there. The seals are weakening. I must find the library before others do. People are becoming involved with hidden intentions. The rabbi later says the air in the room felt unbearably dense. What seals? He asks. Joseph answers while pointing to a sheet of paper filled with geometric symbols, identical to those seen on amulets attributed to Solomon, dated to the 10th century BCE. March 28. A multidisciplinary task force is reassembled to analyze Joseph's statements. If they can be verified, it may be possible to reassess the history of Solomon's temple and the understanding of ancient Jewish texts. Dr. Stern makes a decisive recommendation. Joseph should be taken to the Temple Mount, specifically through the underground tunnels of the Western Wall, a restricted area, under constant supervision by religious authorities and military forces. The visit is approved in secrecy. April 3. Joseph and his parents descend with a team of scientists and security personnel, moving through passages that record the remnants of the ancient temple. The limestone walls, lit by harsh lights, preserve the seals of history. Joseph remains silent, observing everything with intense concentration. Suddenly, 40 meters underground, he steps away from a section of wall indistinguishable from the others. Its color is different, a unique stone. Here, behind this stone there is a sealed chamber. That is where the book is. The archives confirm it. This section was never excavated, due to religious restrictions and the fragility of the structure. Dr. Amos Golan, an archaeologist, deploys a portable ground-penetrating radar. The results are unsettling. There is a void behind the wall, an empty space approximately 3 meters deep. The radar images show something like a structure at the center of the chamber. This discovery creates an ethical and political dilemma. Accessing a chamber beneath the temple wall touches the most sensitive fault lines, religious authority, archaeology, and the long-standing tensions between Jewish and Muslim claims. Rabbi Cohen gives a statement. According to tradition, Solomon's occult knowledge was meant to be revealed only at certain times. If the path is not yet permitted, opposing it would be defying a divine decree. Negotiations with religious authorities across communities result in a compromise. A minimally invasive exploration is authorized. Endoscopic cameras. April 24. A technical team drills an opening hole 3 centimeters wide into the section Joseph indicated. In the monitoring area, the first images on the screen draw in a sharp, involuntary breath. It is dense, pure darkness. Then, using the camera's LED light, the image sharpens. The walls are covered with inscriptions, proto-characters in a 10th century BCE script. At the center, set on a limestone base, the camera scans a vessel, oxidized bronze, laminated over an acacia wood core. The symbols etched into the bronze are identical to the ones Joseph had drawn. Dr. Golan reviews the footage meticulously. It's sealed with an extremely durable resin. The preservation is extraordinary. Moisture protection like this could keep the contents intact for about 3,000 years. Dr. Stern photographs the writing on the walls. She places the translation in Dr. Rothman's hands. This is a warning, Rothman translates, her voice trembling. It says, only one chosen in purity of will, granted by the divine order, may approach alone. It is for protected visions alone. Joseph, who had been sent back to his mother, stands up and walks to the screen. He points to one of the symbols on a framed diagram. This is the locked secret. You enter carefully 3 times against the course of the sun, and you speak the holy secrets of God's temple, alone. Gifts are being offered in homes. Rabbi Cohen asks, "Child, how do you know that?" Joseph answers with effortless indifference, "Test me. If you break more seals, the contents will be destroyed. That's why he showed me the way." For 2 weeks, debate within the team is intense. Scientific arguments clash with accusations of superstition-driven archaeology. Others, especially religious representatives, warn that the recommendations being made verge on deep disrespect. In the end, a precedent-based decision is reached. Joseph will be allowed to participate, under strictly limited scientific and religious supervision. The date is set for May 12, 2024. Preparations include purification rituals overseen by rabbis, archaeological safety protocols, and full scientific documentation. The morning of May 12 dawns with an unusual clarity over Jerusalem. There is a palpable tension in the passages beneath the Temple Mount. A reduced team of 12 people is authorized to be present for the moment. Joseph, following the purification protocol, wears a white cord and is guided through a side passage excavated to allow direct access to the sealed chamber. As the small door opens, a rush of escaping air carries a strange scent, ancient storage, minerals, something long sealed from time. Joseph is guided first by Dr. Golan and Rabbi Cohen. Cameras begin recording again. The child reaches the vessel safely. No fear. He places his hands at the center of the seal and murmurs in an ancient language. The phonemes resonate naturally, picked up clearly by the small camera. Then, precisely as described, he turns 3 times in the direction opposite the sun. In the silence, a metallic click is heard. The side clasps release simultaneously, triggered by an internal hub mechanism. Dr. Golan, with several others, lifts the bronze lid. Inside lies a perfectly preserved collection of curved tablets, bound together and covered by a blackened casing. There are 12 tablets in total, each roughly the size of a modern tablet device. The surfaces are inscribed with cuneiform blocks interwoven with Proto-Hebrew characters. Beside the tablets rests a circular metal object. Golden in color, it is decorated with shell inlays arranged in a hexagonal pattern. Rabbi Cohen recognizes it immediately. This is a shield of David. But not as we know it. This one has 7 points instead of 6. Joseph takes the object gently and holds it up. This is the 7th seal, he explains in a voice far too mature for his age. The others exist in different places of the world, under different conditions. When the region is restored, the points, valid for each era, will open again. The hands are written in these tablets just as they are in others. But this helped them come to pass. So that we may gather again, for the darkness. Silence fills the chamber once more. Over the following 3 weeks, Dr. Rothman's team worked continuously, by day cataloging, by night translating the tablets from the library of the seals. Israeli authorities, fully aware of the religious and geopolitical implications, issued statements under the highest level of secrecy. Joseph stood at the center of the translation process. Linguists noted moments where passages appeared ambiguous or potentially dangerous, yet none of Joseph's renderings were imprecise, not even by a fraction. From Dr. Rothman's report, the child does not read the tablets. He retrieves them. It is as if he studied this text for years. The content is disturbing. The text describes King Solomon not merely as a powerful sage, but as the bearer of a master discipline called the science of the world's boundaries. During the construction of the temple, Solomon identified real fractures at Mount Moriah, places where the barrier between dimensions and the outer limits of the world was dangerously thin. These were not natural formations, but structures deliberately engineered to relieve pressure. Solomon created seals to establish permanent portals, using synchronized transmissions across pre-aligned time intervals. The tablets list the precise locations of the other seals, one among the ruins of Babylon, another in the Sinai Desert, a third beneath an Egyptian pyramid, the fourth in the Caucasus Mountains, the fifth in ancient Iran, the sixth on the island where the sun is born, possibly Japan. Each seal is guarded by dedicated custodians. For generations, entire families have preserved the secret, knowing the work would one day need to be completed. June 4. During a training session, Joseph enters a trance deeper than any before. Everything turns white. His voice becomes heavier, resonant, echoing. He speaks in the first person, as Solomon himself. These writings were not meant to be revealed, for they are instructions to be used at the end, when retribution is required. For 3,000 years these seals have held. At the end of that span, their power can wane. If they are not renewed in purity, our suffering will continue. They will open again. I chose to depart in alignment with a human era prepared for me. In these days, as guardians multiply and nations bind themselves alone, you will meet a child who remembers what you have done. This has never happened before. It is well. When Joseph comes back to himself, he remembers nothing. But those present know that something irreversible has occurred. Rabbi Cohen, tears in his eyes, says only this. This is living prophecy. June 15, 2024. The Vatican formally requests information regarding the discovery. Rumors suggest that a Solomonic text has begun circulating within international religious circles. A special delegation travels from Rome to Jerusalem. Father Matteo Ricci, an expert on apocalyptic texts, and historian Herman Lucia Ferretti, a specialist in Second Temple Judaism. As the Vatican representatives review photographs and translations, their reactions grow markedly subdued. Father Ritchie reveals that the Vatican's secret archives contain references, mentioned in medieval manuscripts, to a Liber Signorum Salomonis, the Book of Solomon's Seals, described as a library forbidden for use by the Church. There is a reason certain knowledge was hidden, Ritchie says gravely. Some things are not meant to be acted upon. Joseph is present. Ritchie experiences an unexplained surge of emotion. He asks, "Are you pleased that Solomon's primary gates are being revealed?" Joseph answers calmly, "Another gate is neither good nor bad. It is different, and there is no preparation for entering. If the gates are controlled, reality remains beautiful. They are meant to be kept intact." He then begins to recite sacred prayers, murmuring a passage in Latin. June 18. Before the scientific and religious authorities of the world could formally assess Joseph's words, an event occurred that definitively corroborated them. At the time, our laboratory tables were under maximum security, and all electronic devices were operating simultaneously. Cameras, ventilation systems, lights, computers, everything was on. Without warning, all systems shut down. Guards reported a sensation of pressure in the air just before the power failure. But the sky outside remained unchanged. And then, the tablets began to glow. The characters etched into the clay responded with extraordinary clarity, illuminating themselves in phosphorescent colors. The phenomenon lasted exactly 7 minutes. Battery-powered backup cameras independently captured the entire event. Subsequent analysis showed that the tablets emitted a low-frequency electromagnetic radiation. Nothing comparable had ever been recorded. Dr. Golan stated only this: "This is an event for which conventional explanations are insufficient." The phenomena evolved into a chain of international events. Religious institutions and organizations around the world, many with access to advanced scientific resources, became involved. Israel decided to host an international conference in Jerusalem on July 10. The findings would be presented under UNESCO supervision, with representatives of the world's major religions in attendance. The conference was held at the Jerusalem International Convention Center, with security comparable to that of a UN assembly. Joseph, now 6 years old, became the focal point of attention. He was presented before more than 300 academics, clergy members, and government representatives. Dr. Rothman delivered the full translations, along with a detailed explanation of the content. Then, unexpectedly, Joseph asked to speak. The organizers hesitated. Rabbi Cohen and the clergy insisted. A microphone was brought. Joseph walked onto the stage. The proceedings were broadcast live, with simultaneous interpretation across multiple channels. Joseph began to speak, but not in Hebrew, and not in Spanish. He spoke in ancient Aramaic, then in Akkadian, then shifted seamlessly into Old Persian, and finally into Greek, the languages of the ancient world that once dominated the Middle East in Solomon's time. All were translated simultaneously. His message, rendered faithfully, was this: the seals are weakening. 3,000 years have passed since their creation. In less than 50 years, if they are not renewed, the gates will begin to open. There is no prevention, only preparation. The tablets contain instructions to renew the seals, but they require cooperation among nations in conflict. Solomon established this principle: only human unity can sustain them. Permanence requires it. I am only a child. If I were to carry this burden alone, it would not be right. But you, the adults, have the responsibility to act. Silence filled the hall. Then something extraordinary happened. The Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, Sheikh Hassan Alami, rose and stepped onto the stage. He descended the steps and approached Joseph, kneeling to take the child's hands. "If a child can carry this burden," he said, his voice breaking, "then we, the adults, can set aside our differences." Moments later, Rabbi Cohen and Greek Orthodox Patriarch Theophilos II joined him, signing a joint declaration. 3 religious leaders, representing 3 great faiths, standing together around Joseph. A symbolic gesture without precedent in modern Jerusalem's history. A few days after the conference, the world changed in subtle but profoundly beautiful ways. UNESCO declared the tablets of the Book of the Seals part of humanity's shared heritage. A permanent international committee was established to evaluate their contents and coordinate the management of the seals. Archaeological teams began operating in 10-hour shifts, launching expeditions at the identified locations under renewed international cooperation protocols. Joseph returned to being simply himself. Slowly, the supernatural ability he once carried faded into something unreachable, like a closed chapter. By early 2025, nothing more occurred. Solomon's visions did not return. Joseph plays with his toys, goes to school, argues with his parents in the hallway of their home. He is no different from any other child. Doctors confirm that his brain shows no alteration. What remains is not memory, but a deep, living sense, an awareness without recall. Sarah and David Levi protect their son's privacy. They refuse tours, book offers, documentaries. They want Joseph to have a normal childhood. Under embargo remain the materials, videos, recordings, files. One day, when Joseph is an adult, they will show him everything. He will decide whether to accept this inheritance. In Jerusalem, within a specially constructed facility at the Hebrew University, Solomon's 12 tablets continue to be safeguarded by a rotating scientific team and religious custodians from the three Abrahamic traditions. In September, the tablets and the accompanying artifact were meticulously photographed. Later, the sealed chamber beneath the Temple Mount was reinforced, a new seal created with modern technology, following the ancient rituals described in the tablets. It was not easy, but the search continues. Rothman published an academic book titled, The Child of the Temple, Archaeology, Prophecy, and the Mystery of the Solomonic Seals. On the final page, she writes, "Science cannot explain an event that unfolded simultaneously across millennia. Yet the physical evidence is undeniable. At the university, much has been transformed into a new understanding of reality. And the tests remind us that, from time to time, we are touched by mysteries that rescue humility from the illusion of certainty." Joseph Levi, 7 years old, lives peacefully in Tel Aviv. He remembers nothing, and yet, sometimes, reflected in water, or drifting through darkness, symbols still move. As if waiting, as if to say, when the time comes,